Elden Ring. I am so excited. Now, when I initially started testing this on my GTX 1060, I thought we were going to hit 60 FPS at max settings because, you're in this more closed-in environment. Whoa, stutter there. Anyway, you're in the more closed-in environment at first, but shortly into the game, you step outside and we see, yes indeed, this is now an open world From Software title. And that does come with an increased graphics horsepower demand. Look at that draw distance. There's a big draw distance. There's lots of grass, trees, things going on here. And the game looks very good. Now, the minimum GPU system requirement for this game is a GTX 1060 3GB, and I'm running the 6GB version. And in addition to the increased VRAM, which by the way, it doesn't really seem to be needing. If you look at my memory usage up here, we're only at about 3.5GB. And this is at the maximum 1080p settings. But the extra 10% CUDA cores you get on the 6GB version, I think is giving me a bit of a boost to performance here. So we can see at 1080p max settings out here in the open world, it does indeed look like we can play the game, although it's in the mid-40s rather than a locked 60 FPS. And if you wanted to, you could just, cap the game at 30 or something if you wanted a smooth capped frame rate. Maybe even cap it to 40 if you can get your monitor to be set to a 40 Hz refresh rate, or a maybe you have a variable refresh rate monitor, something like that. However, for a lot of people, you're going to want to be closer to 60 frames per second in a game like this where the action and timing is so critical. By the way, 60 frames per second is going to be the maximum this game will reach. If even in a scene like this where I'm staring at a brick wall and my GPU could handle going above 60, it won't. The game is capped at 60 frames per second, as is most From Software titles. And there'll probably be a community mod to unlock that, but keep in mind that can come with problems with From Software's engine. I believe it can cause issues with their physics or something like that, which is why they usually have it capped at 60. I'm not excusing them. They should find a better way to program their engine. Anyway, let's drop down to the high preset. The game, by the way, has presets at low, medium, high, and maximum, but then you have individual settings you could tweak as well. I'm just going to go down to the high preset, which will require us to quit back to the graphics menu. While we do so, I'm going to go ahead and tell you how excited I am for Elden Ring. Oh my gosh, guys, I am so excited. From Software games are my absolute favorite. The Dark Souls series and, Bloodborne and Sekiro and all of those are my all-time favorite games. So, Elden Ring, so excited. Anyway, here we are at the high settings, and you can see that we are now at 50 frames per second when we're looking out here at this large open world setting. Now, staring back this way, where there's less going on in the distance, we can hit 60 frames per second, and we would inside of a more closed-in dungeon environment. But once again, we are not hitting a 60 frames per second lock. Now, we are close to 50 a lot of the time. So if you wanted to set your monitor, if you're not variable refresh rate, to a, to a custom resolution of 50, sorry, not resolution, but a custom resolution, set the hertz to 50, that would probably be pretty smooth if you don't have variable refresh rate. Now, you did see those large stutters there, and I have been testing this out and getting those stutters no matter what graphics settings I set it to, and I've seen it reported by other people as well. It does seem like the open world in this game has stuttering problems, and yes, I downloaded the day one patch, which was supposed to help with those. Apparently it was worse, or, they didn't fix it at all. Who knows? I didn't test it out before the day one patch. Alright, so these settings would be reasonable, but a lot of people are still going to want to try to hit that 60. Let's go ahead and test out medium settings. So once again, we will try the medium preset, but I'll also show you that I don't like the medium preset, and I'll show you one special fix as soon as we've loaded back in. Let's go ahead and quit out to the menu and load back in so we can see the actual medium preset without the things that didn't load properly. Oh, I'm so excited to actually get around to playing this rather than benchmarking it. Speaking of benchmarking it, I'll also test it out on my RX 6800 XT, my RX 6600, And I also just got an RTX 3080 in the mail, so assuming it's not defective, I'll also get one of those tests in here. Hey, at medium settings, we do now seem to be hitting just about 60 FPS. You can see that we're falling slightly below, right? Slightly below 60 at times, but I would say that medium does seem to be the magical preset for this graphics card. However, do you notice the trees and the grass and things in the distance just look much worse now, kind of shimmery? That's because the medium preset sets the what's it called? Anti-aliasing all the way down to low. So if you go to the advanced settings, whoa, there was this big stutter there as well. Anyway, even on the menu. If you set the anti-aliasing to high, by the way, there's only off, low, and high. The anti-aliasing is not super demanding. It does increase the demand, but only by a little bit. And in my opinion, the image looks so much more stable and so much better with the anti-aliasing set to high. So by the way, this actually just is my recommended settings for the GTX 1060 based on the areas of the game that I've been able to test. It will drop a little bit below 60, but it looks pretty good, especially with that anti-aliasing turned back up to high. So if you want an easy graphic settings to use, just go ahead and use medium preset with the anti-aliasing turned back up to high, and away you go. Now, I mean, if you really want to lock into 60 at all times, you could lower settings even further, and just for the sake of science and this video, we might as well test out the low preset just to get an idea of what that looks like. Now even there, again, you saw that stutter. Those stutters don't seem to depend at all on the graphics settings. It just seems to be something going on with the engine. Alright, so let's test out the low preset. And once again, we will restart the game. What's the button for it? There we go. Because we want to make sure we're actually applying all the settings. And I'll also mention, I think I did already, maybe I didn't, I don't know, that my system is well above a normal GTX 1060 system. So you'll also want to think about your processor and your RAM. The game does recommend 12 gigabytes of RAM. I have 32, and then my processor is an R950-950X, which is way above the recommended. Alright, at the low settings, it does look like, other than the stutters, and we will still get stutters even at low, it does look like we're now able to play at a locked 60 FPS. So if your concern is just gameplay stability and you just want to lock into 60, you can, except for these stutters. You saw, we still got those stutters. They really need to fix whatever's causing those stutters. I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. I'm very curious if they'll still show up on all of my high-end GPUs, but I suspect that they will. It doesn't seem to be related to the actual demand on the GPU itself. Alright guys, that's pretty much it. It looks like the conclusion is the 1060 can hit 60 FPS. I believe I was correct in my systems requirements video, where I thought that the minimum requirement was targeting 60 frames per second at low settings 1080p, because even if you had the 3GB version of this card, you would still most likely be at or at least around 60 FPS right now. You only lose about 10% performance on the 3GB model, and you can see that at low settings we are under the 3GB limit. My RAM usage is above 8. It's not all the way to 12, although sometimes if you have a lot of RAM like my system does, it tries to use more than it actually needs. So I'm curious whether you could get by with 8 gigabytes of RAM. But I don't have 8 gigabytes of RAM to test this on. I only have two 16 gigabyte sticks, so I can't even test that out in single channel mode. Alright guys, hopefully this was interesting. Should I go fight this giant monster and die at the end of the video? That seems like the official From Software way to do the video. You can see the frame rate's spiking low here, even at low settings. I hate those stutters, especially if we get into some combat. If he hits me even once, I am dead. I'm certain of it. There's no way I'm supposed to be able to fight this enemy right now. Ooh, I don't like that we're getting stutters in combat. That is not a good sign. The one place I do not want stutters is in combat, and we saw it happen even at completely low settings. Yuck. Well, that's a bad sign, but that's all we can do for now, and I hope you have an excellent day.